welcome to Head Games, the science and psychology of sports. I'm Dr. Brett Levine, joined as always by Dr. Ben Rosenberg. Ben, how is your worst fantasy football team doing?
5-3. Have they played 8 games? 9 games. 6-3. 6-3.
I can tell how invested you are, man. Really.
It's your league, bro. So I'm still doing pretty well, I guess. I'm 9-0 in one league, so I'll take it.
I said your worst team. This isn't. We don't want.
I'm gonna brag.
That's fine.
How about you?
As much as I want to talk about fantasy football, we have a guest today, Tracy Sandler. She's a founder and CEO of Fangirl Sports Network, which is a digital media company for female sports fans that delivers inspiring, funny, and informative commentary about professional sports teams, as well as behind-the-scenes look at accomplished women making waves in the sports industry. Tracy, welcome to Head Games.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. I guess I gave that's the Cliff Notes version, but tell us a little bit more about yourself and Fangirl Sports Network.
I'll just kind of begin a little, I guess, with Fangirl Sports Network and why I started it. So I originally started it because I've been a big sports fan my entire life. And I've also, I know everything that's going on in the games, like analysis, stats, all of the things. But I'm also a female and can be very much a girly girl, for lack of a better term, but really enjoy the lifestyle aspect of sports, what's going on beyond the field, healthy recipes on game day, looking cute on game day, looking at what, women are doing in the sports industry. And I didn't really feel like there was content that spoke to women like me necessarily. So I wanted to create a place for female fans where they were empowered to be whatever kind of fan they wanted to be. They wanted to be a casual sports fan. They wanted to be a diehard sports fan. If they wanted to mix in the lifestyle, just mix in the stats. And that's really how it started. It's been through a number of different iterations, as always happens when you start something like this. And there have been a lot of changes along the way, but I think we have found content that really appeals to our followers and to the people who are listening to our podcasts and reading our content, and just that's really relatable to female fans.
That's awesome. What are some of the things that you guys talk about or post that you feel like folks relate to the most? Like, what are the things that really get the most attention?
So our Get My Job podcast does really well. And that is when every week I sit down with a prominent woman in sports and talk about her journey, obstacles she's faced, advice, or as one of our guests said, encouragement for young women who want to be in the sports industry. And one of the things with that that's really important to me is to highlight all the different paths for a career in sports. And I think a lot of us watch TV and so assume it's sideline reporting or in studio hosting, which is obviously those are fantastic positions, but there's so many things that you can do. Actually, you guys will probably really find this interesting. This week we had Sarah Taylor on. She's a mental performance consultant and she works with athletes, on the psychological side of sports. And there's something that people may not know is an option and a way to get involved. We have people that have run foundations, social media managers, so all types of different positions that we've had. So Get My Job is definitely one. Our memes tend to be very relatable to our followers. People seem to really enjoy them, which is something we kind of happened upon. We started doing memes on a Sunday, just kind of relating to the Sundays of football, and they really seem to do well and people really like them. We post a fan dog every week for Sunday Night Football. We pick one of the teams and there's a fan dog. So that is good. Our 5 fun facts, which is something that I had started doing with 49ers players. So I do that with them one-on-one, but we do it every week kind of on just a rivalry of the week, hot athlete of the week, et cetera, et cetera. And then we do the Friday 5. And that's another thing people really seem to like because it's basically, we call it, am I allowed to swear?
Yes.
It's the shit you need to know going into the weekend that we put an asterisk because, we're very family friendly network, but
we aren't.
We are definitely not.
So, and that's been great because it's 5 slides and I have a lot of fun with it. And it's 5 slides on really kind of your nuggets for the weekend. And it's funny with that one because I think all sides of my sports fandom come in when I write it because I want to get all the information in there and get people to know everything they need to know, let's say about an upcoming matchup, but people have 15 seconds to read a slide. So what do I need to get in there so that if you're watching the game with friends on Sunday, you know why Kyler Murray might beat Josh Allen. I mean, we have a lot of great content, but those seem to be the things that people really respond to. And we have another great podcast, but I think Get My Job is really responding to our female audience.
Nice. Ben and I are both from the Bay Area, so we're big Niner fans, which...
Oh, okay. I'm sorry for this.
Hey.
We can all, we can all just wallow. I think towards the end of the show, we have a couple
Niners questions.
Absolutely, no problem.
I wanted to ask a little bit more about Fangirl and like, what was the real motivation for you in establishing this? And obviously, what have you noticed are some misconceptions about females and sports in general?
Kind of going back to a little bit what I said earlier was I don't think there was content for the female fan where she felt empowered. And I know we use the word empowered a lot now, but you know what I mean by that is I feel like people used to assume when I was first a sports fan as a kid growing up that I didn't really know what I was talking about. I just thought the players were cute. And I mean, I will actually tell you that with it 3 years ago, I was on a date, which turned out to be a very short date, and you'll hear why. When the guy said to me within like 2 minutes, well, it's a good thing Jimmy Garoppolo's on the 49ers. That gives you something to talk about. You guys can talk about how cute he is.
Oh, shit.
And so that I felt, but I think unfortunately, I mean, it was 2018. So it was 2 years ago. And I just remember it was 2018 because I was like, it's 2018. And this guy just said that to me and meant it. He wasn't trying to be funny. Like he 100% meant it. And that I feel like there was that perception. And I also feel like content is geared towards men, a lot of it, which I understand. I mean, the majority of sports fans, I think it's changing, but historically the majority of sports fans have been men. So I wanted women to feel, for lack of a better term, feel okay with knowing why Carson Wentz is regressing, but also wanting to bedazzle a Carson Wentz jersey and knowing that those two things are fine in conjunction with each other or not. And that's the other thing, you know, a lot of merchandise for a long time, and I like pink and sparkle, but not every woman does. And for a long time, all merchandise was pink and sparkly, but also to be okay to be a female fan who doesn't like any of that. Yeah. So that's kind of was the thought behind it. And I wanted content that spoke to women, not content that women like digest, but is really speaking.
Yeah. My wife always gets pissed when the only sports clothing options are pink. Not that she doesn't like pink, but she's like, if I'm going to wear sports something, I want it to be like my team's colors, right? Like I don't need it to be pink if this is the only thing that's open to me. You mentioned being girly girl and also being like a real legit sports fan, unbeknownst to this guy that unfortunately went on a date with you. Can you talk a little bit more about negotiating and like embracing both of those identities and how they are, you can sort of hold both of them together and not have them seemingly be in competition with each other? For
me, I mean, it really was just always who I was. So it just really embodied who I am. I remember in high school, I was wearing a red sweatshirt, I think maybe from the Gap, and it had 43 on it. And I don't know why. It actually wasn't 49ers related. And it was just it was one of those random sweatshirts. They put a random number on it. And a friend of mine, a guy said, oh, who's number 43 on the 49ers? And I said, Adam Walker, but that's not what the sweatshirt is. And he was like, wait, what? At this point in time, I couldn't even tell you who Adam Walker, I couldn't even know what position he played at that time. But it was funny because he didn't expect that to be the answer. He didn't know who Adam Walker was. He had no idea who Adam Walker was. And so I just think that that's just kind of always been who I am. So it didn't feel like I needed to embrace it. It just was very authentic and natural to me. And I think it's authentic and natural to a lot of fans. And what I have found very interesting is our male followers respond to a lot of this content in a way that I would have maybe not necessarily thought they would, but they do, which has been interesting.
Well, what do you think? What do you think that's about? What that's about? Like, is there something that you're offering that maybe the mainstream sports networks aren't offering to male followers?
We have maybe room, for lack of a better term, to cover all sorts of things. You know, I'm not on a deadline. I don't need to have a certain number of posts every day. So let's say like with 49ers stuff, for instance, I can do 5 fun facts and make that my focus of the day because that's what I can do. And my followers love that. I've become known for it in that world. So, you know, that really works. But I think the 5 fun facts has been popular generally because it is a way to get to know players, athletes, rivalries, stadiums in a way that maybe people wouldn't have before. So when we do them on the brand account, I think there's that. I think a lot of our male followers also have found a way for their spouses, partners, sisters, moms to get involved in a way that those people didn't know how to before. Does that make sense? I don't, that sometimes I think as women, and I find this even now, like I'm running a digital sports media company and not ESPN, but I am running this company and I will be in conversations with male friends or people and I'll get cut off and it's just the nature of where we are. But I think maybe it was something that created content like for everybody, that everybody felt we shouldn't get cut off, but I think that is a start. But I think we talk a lot about community. That's another thing actually I forgot to mention earlier. We started a few months ago, Community Monday. So every Monday we highlight an athlete and the work he or she's doing in the community, and people just don't have room for that necessarily. So I think we are able to provide a little bit more off-field content that people find interesting just because we create what we are providing. We're not beholden.
You hit the nail on the head because I think you're really speaking to a new identity of sports fan. Because for the longest time, I think a lot of people, especially a lot of Americans, when you say describe the average sports fan, it's a stereotype of like probably me, like an overweight male drinking beer, screaming at the television. And it's not just merchandise though. I mean, you talked about merchandise, but it also seems like this identity or different types of content. It really seems like you're filling this niche that people have wanted for a while. And it's not just females. You said that there's a male audience as well. What's the response from people that have seen Fangirl Sports Network and said, oh, this is really cool and engaged with it? What's been the response?
I mean, that's been pretty much the response. I've for the most part, I mean, and I can't really even think of, I've had some social media people to me personally about like 49er stuff be not that nice, but that's like a whole different issue. For the brand itself and what we're doing, the response has been overwhelmingly positive. And I've yet to meet anybody and tell them about it, except for that one guy on the date, but really anyone else to say like, I don't get it, or I don't see the value, or I don't believe you. I mean, I've had people say, well, those numbers sound high in terms of like 45% of NFL fans are women. And I have people be like, I don't believe that. I'm like, well, okay, it's true. I mean, I didn't make it up out of thin air. It's like I didn't just like, that sounds like a good number. Let's go with that. But I think for the most part, everyone has responded well and has enjoyed the content that we're doing. And I think part of it is that it's different. And, you mentioned earlier, like our 3 pillars are to inform, inspire, and make you laugh. And so I think when you know that's what you're getting, like you go to Fangirl Sports Network, you're going to learn something, you're going to be inspired by something, or you're going to laugh. People enjoy those 3 things. And I think there's kind of maybe a tranquility in knowing that's what you're getting.
Yeah. Those are also things that appeal to men and women, right? Like I want to be informed, inspired, and laugh every day, everywhere I go. So it's not that like those are gendered pillars that you're talking about. So I think it's clear that would be attractive to anybody.
Yes, I think so. I mean, we've been through a number of iterations. We first started, it was just me covering the 49ers, and I would do a weekly game preview and a weekly lifestyle video. And then when we had fangirls for all the teams, and we've moved away from that model, but when we had that, they would do that. And then we would when we were doing more video content, there was like a lifestyle aspect and recipes and that type of stuff. We found that our niche and what we do well isn't exactly that. We can share that, but there are people that do that. So we're better off kind of doing what we do and letting those people do what they do and sharing what they do, and that type of thing. So I think some of those lifestyle things maybe appealed to women a little bit more. I would say our memes are definitely geared towards females. I think anyone can find them funny, but they're more relatable to a female fan. But yes, to your point, the content certainly speaks to anyone. And I also think fans love content. And fans want to know everything, about their team. So I think the content we're doing just provides another avenue of learning about your favorite team and players that maybe you wouldn't elsewhere.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I think we have a ton of 49er questions that we'd like to ask.
Go for it.
It's been a rough year. Okay, I don't get this, but why is there so much discussion about the future with Jimmy G? It seems like a lock. He seems like a certified guy and he can be the quarterback for the future, but why is there so much discussion around his future? And do you think he's going to be the quarterback in the next year, 2 years, 3 years?
It is an interesting thing with Jimmy Garoppolo because it's kind of been that way from the get-go. I mean, he came in and he won those 5 games, and in those 5 games, he looked like potentially the greatest quarterback of all time. Then he struggled in the beginning of 2018, and then he got hurt and he was out. And then last year, they went to a Super Bowl. I mean, the thing that's so interesting to me about it is he was like 7 minutes away from being the Super Bowl MVP, or 12 minutes from the Super Bowl. And it's just, I think about that sometimes, like, had they either converted on 3rd and 15 or stopped the Chiefs on 3rd and 15, like 3rd and 15 is what a different conversation would be. But there is always been something about Jimmy, and I don't quite understand what it is, but I think part of it is because he's been hurt so much. We haven't had the opportunity maybe to see him as much as fans would like to do so. I mean, I go back to, but in his first full season, he went to a Super Bowl, but and then unfortunately he struggled in game 1, but they all struggled in game 1. Game 2, of course, Nick Bosa goes down, Solomon Thomas goes down, and that's when Jimmy hurt his ankle, which he's probably never, even when he's been better, it hasn't been great. So I just think it's hard to tell. So there seems to be that, and I also think it always falls on the quarterback. I mean, you have a team that's fallen from grace, but not really. They've had more injuries. I mean, I want to say literally half the team has been hurt. I don't even like using hyperbole, and it tends to fall on the quarterback. So I think that's part of it. In terms of next year, the year after that, I don't know. John Lynch was on KNBR earlier and spoke very highly of Jimmy. I would guess that he has at least another year, that they would potentially draft somebody in the 2nd round. I don't think they're going to have a high enough pick for like a Trevor Lawrence. But, they draft somebody and he sits behind Jimmy and they see what happens next year. Beyond that, I don't know. There are many people that think this is it, that this is the end of the road and they're going to cut ties and it would save a ton of money. And I could see that too, but I lean more towards he will be there another year.
All right. You heard it here first. I mean,
I don't know if you heard it here first, but you heard it.
No, I mean, it's like you said, it's kind of hard to argue. Like the one full year the guy's played, he goes 13-3 and they go to the Super Bowl. People say, oh, he threw the ball like 6 times in the playoffs, right? And like, yeah, that's sort of true, but he didn't need to throw the ball anymore until maybe the 4th quarter. But that's a different discussion.
That's where a lot of this comes from. Because on the national stage, when everyone was paying attention, he barely threw the ball. But they also had 2 playoff games in which they decimated their opponents. So why wouldn't you? And everybody got mad at Kyle Shanahan when he was the offensive coordinator for the Falcons for throwing the ball when he should have run. I mean, I just think you can't win.
You can't win. It's so true. So staying with the Niners, I know I have mine. I've been to been lucky to be to a lot of playoff games over the years at Candlestick and a few at Levi's. What's your favorite Niners memory of your life? Which one really just sticks out to you?
Well, I have 2. One, that's okay. One is going to be when I first discovered Joe Montana and became a Niners fan, because that was why I became a Niners fan. So that was really cool. And then I've had a number of really awesome experiences from that. I went to an NFC Championship game in Dallas, even though the game was a disaster. It was still cool to be there. I went to the Super Bowl in New Orleans against the Ravens, and even though they lost, it was an incredible experience to be there. I was at the NFC Championship game the next year in Seattle. So I've been incredible experiences. But I would say this past Super Bowl, like I woke up in the morning and I definitely like cried in a good way, because I was like, this is the team I grew up loving, and I'm putting on a credential and I'm going to cover this team in the Super Bowl. And that, I think, was like the coolest moment, especially because I did build Fangirl out of nowhere. So I really everybody earns their credential, but I just my company that I started, and it just was like a very exciting thing for me to have that feeling.
That's amazing.
Mine, I think it was Terrell Owens, 90, what was that, 99?
98, 99?
98 against the Cowboys. That was that one was nuts.
Well, that
Packers,
was,
Packers against
Packers.
Yeah.
Yes.
Were you at that game, or you just remember watching it?
No, I remember seeing it. I have to give a memory that I was at.
Oh, no, I know. I'm just curious if you were there.
Yeah. Was it in Green Bay? Yeah, I flew out there as a 10-year-old.
No, dude, it was in San Francisco, that game.
Oh, see? Well, there goes my memory, right?
You're getting old, man. You're getting old. Mine is the Alex Smith beating the Saints in the playoff game.
Well, that was incredible.
There.
Which I was at. QB sweep game. I was at that game.
Oh, wow. That's
And
amazing.
that was just insane. My dad is like, he likes to spend money on sporting event tickets, which like I have benefited immensely from over the course of my life. And for whatever reason, we decided to go. And that was just an incredible game. It's the loudest stadium I've ever been to. College games, pro games, just absolute insanity. And it's a crazy game.
That was an incredible game. And talk about Alex Smith. What a story.
Dude, awesome that he's back, right? I mean, he threw 3 picks last week, but still so cool. So cool to see him out there.
The fact that he's playing when he almost lost his leg is
Yeah.
truly incredible.
Yeah. And seeing that documentary on ESPN and seeing like the shots of his leg after, it's like, dude, how are you even moving? How are you even running around with your kids, much less playing in the NFL?
It's incredible. It's an incredible.
Yeah.
One last question for you. I can't help but talk about fantasy. If there's one Niner running back to own rest of season, who is it?
Well, that one's really hard because the ones I would give you are all on IR. at the moment. I mean, the season started, I would have told you Ricky Mostert, and then I would have told you Jeff Wilson Jr. I mean, it's kind of a tough one. And I think I also have a hard time with it because I think it's still running back by committee. I guess technically Jerick McKinnon is your 3 down back, but I think they're also very much going to go with the hot hand on that one. Yeah. So
stay away.
People ask me that all the time, and I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, because also I also feel like I give advice and then that game the person gets hurt. And I feel bad.
They're snake bit at this point.
Yeah, I feel bad about the whole thing.
Yeah. Listen, it's inspiring, I think, to see someone turn their passion into a business. And I think, for Ben and I with this fledgling crazy podcast, it's inspiring to us to see the success that you've had. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. And I think what you're doing is really cool. And I think it's a really important part of the game and important part of being fans and being an athlete and all of it. So I think what you're doing is cool. So I'm excited to see where you guys continue to go.
Thanks, Tracy. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yep. We'll put your social out there later. Please rate and subscribe where applicable. Thanks as always to our editing team for putting together today's show. You can find us on Twitter at HeadGameSite. You can find me on Twitter at Dr. Brett Levine. And you can find that guy on Twitter at BD Rosenberg, PhD. And thanks as always for tuning in.